Hey guys, it's Ricky here with DashCam Documentaries, and today I am back on Wilshire Boulevard here in Los Angeles, and I'm here to check out a couple of interesting streets by the name of Shatto, Shatto. Now there's a Shatto Street and a Shatto Place, which we are going to visit today, but the main reason is to learn about the amazing history of a man by the name of George Shatto and his wife Clara, who did amazing things not only here in Los Angeles but also Catalina Island. And we're going to end off at the site of his mansion, where it used to be at least. So as always, you're welcome to join me. Just get in the car and buckle up. Okay, here we go down Wilshire Boulevard. Now, to my right, you're gonna see the beautiful Lafayette Park. Now, the reason why this is significant in the history of George and Clara Shatto is because this park here to the right, the land was actually donated by the wife of George, Clara, after he had already died. So we're gonna get to that unfortunate part of the story a little bit later, but we're gonna start off by heading to the first stop, which is Shatto Street. And as we make our way, I'm gonna go over the history of this fascinating man. Now, he was born actually in Ohio in 1850, and at 26 years old he met his beautiful wife Clara, and they got married, and shortly thereafter, the following year, they had a beautiful baby boy by the name of Walter. Now, unfortunately, after 8 months of life, Walter died, and George and Clara wanted a fresh start, so they moved from Michigan to Los Angeles. Now here we go. Here is Shatto Place. Now, Shatto Place is this street I'm going to be traversing through here as we get to the Shatto Recreation Center. So all this was named after George Shatto. Now, after the unfortunate death of his son, as I was stating, they moved to Los Angeles, where he switched careers from dry goods, which he had a successful business in Michigan, and he got into real estate. And out here he did have a lot of successful real estate along these streets. Now this is 6th Street, but back in Wilshire he had a development by the name of Orange Heights, which was very successful. And he used the money from his real estate transactions to actually buy the island of Catalina, and that was his most ambitious project, which he did in 1887. He bought the island from a man named James Lick for $200,000, and he was initially going to call it Shatto City, but his sister-in-law said that is not an ideal name, so she thought of the name Avalon, which actually came from a poem by Tennyson. So the name Avalon stuck, and that's what he called his beautiful new island. Now, Shatto, George, had a steamship that would pick people up in Los Angeles and take them to his new island, which he just purchased for $200,000. And he built the Hotel Metropole, and things were going quite well for George Shatto. And this is his street, Shatto Place. Now up ahead, we're approaching the Shatto Recreation Center. Now you can see people enjoying themselves up here, various courts. On a beautiful day like today, people do come here and enjoy themselves, many of which do not understand the history of this man, George Shatto. So as we take a little tour here of the Shatto Recreation Center, we're going to continue on about the story of George Shatto. And let me zoom in a little bit here on this shot of his recreation center. Beautiful. You can see his name embedded in that stone right there. Shatto Recreation Center and Community Building. Now, George had his island and it was doing okay, but he was hoping to get more money to pay off his mortgage for the island, and he sought a mining company, and he found one from England, a British mining company, and he was hoping to use the revenue from that to continue developing his island, which was just, when he purchased it, was just had sheep and cows and just very few people living there. Now, it didn't work out because the British mining company did not find what they were looking for in the minerals there. So Shatto ended up defaulting on his loan, and he had already started building a huge mansion, a Queen Anne style mansion on Wilshire Boulevard. Now we're going to head back to where that mansion used to be. Right now I'm back on Shatto Place, and the expense of the mansion combined with the fact that the island and the hotel and the ferry shuttle, the steamship, were not doing very well, he lost the island. He defaulted on his loan. It went back to the man who sold it to him, James Lick, who eventually sold it to brothers by the name of Banning. Now, he continued to work in real estate here on Wilshire and other places and did do quite well. Now, in May of 1893, Shatto went to the Mojave Desert with a group of investors to look at mining property. And while he was out there, he found out that his wife, Clara, was sick. Now, here we come up on Shatto Street. I'm going to make a right. This is the second street named after George Shatto. So he found out his wife was sick, and he took the first train he could back, but they were all sold out. They had all left for the night. All he can get on was a freight train. So he slept in the back of a freight train and was heading back from the Mojave Desert to Los Angeles. Now, unfortunately, the train was parked in Ravenna, California, and little did they know another train was coming back behind them. That train would strike the freight train Mr. Shatto was sleeping in and would kill him immediately. So he died. Now I'm going to go one more time down Shatto Place. Let's take another look. You can see people enjoying themselves here with a cigarette and some vehicles parked. Strange parking on this street feeding into these buildings here. So this, once again, is a street in Los Angeles. We are just one block north of Wilshire. We're going to go back and see another part of Shatto Street. Now, so George Shatto unfortunately was killed trying to visit his wife. Now, his wife did end up surviving the ailment she had and was a great philanthropist and donated Lafayette Park and other places as well. Okay, we are going to head back around to the site of Mr. Shatto's mansion. So I was stating that the mansion was done in 1892, but he had already lost Catalina Island now in 91, which was the year prior. Now, the reason that was significant is because he had designed this mansion to have a 4-story tower that would overlook the city of Los Angeles all the way to Catalina Island. So his dream was to relax in his 4-story Queen Anne mansion and climb up to the top of the tower and look out at the island that he owned, that he developed into a tourist spot that was supposed to be so successful. But unfortunately, he just was looking out into another man's island at that point, because the Banning brothers had owned it by that point, and they did succeed in making it quite a popular tourist attraction, which it still is, of course, to this day. Now, the only remnant of the mansion, so Mrs. Clara Shatto did live at the mansion for several years. She eventually donated the mansion to Good Samaritan Hospital, which you can see to my right, and they used it as a boarding house for nurses for several years, and eventually the mansion was torn down in order for them to build an extension of Good Samaritan Hospital. Now, the only thing that remains, we're going to come up on it right now. You see this brick wall here? This is the original brick wall of Mr. Shatto's mansion. Now, I'll put a link down below to a picture of the mansion, but it was torn down in the 1920s, and a Tower of Good Samaritan was built here, and this is all that remains. So, quite an interesting story. Now, George, Clara, and their son, Walter, are all buried in a pyramid-shaped mausoleum at Angeles Rosedale Cemetery, where they can all finally rest together. Well, that'll do it for this episode of DashCam Documentaries. Please leave any comments below and like the page. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on our next adventure.